Okay, last activity for recursion. So I'm going to go over this so you know what to do. Out on Schoology, you'll find all the information you need. So for maze of recursion, you need to read in Barron's AP Computer Science A, and I put that Barron's AP Computer Science A out in the resources folder. I believe it was from the year 2005. So you need to read over pages 290 through 299, and pay particular attention to 298 through 299. You'll complete the recursion maze activity, and what you'll have to do, you'll have to change the green squares to blue. So green squares to blue. You'll provide the necessary instance fields and code to solve the maze when the Solve Maze button is pressed. So let me just briefly show you Barron's AP, and in particular 298. So here they talk about recursion in two-dimensional grids. I encourage you to read over this so you get a feeling. Of what you need to do. And for the most part, though, all you will really need to do is you'll need to implement the code that, for the most part, for this here, it changes the black squares to white. Okay, so this code down here will change the black squares to white, but it's basically the same algorithm you'll use in recursion maze to change the green squares to blue. Okay, so we have some instance variables, which will be a little different for recursion maze. So make sure you understand how these instance variables are used in this recursion. And what else? So for the most part, what you will do is you'll implement a method. Rather than erase blob, you can call it whatever you want to, which will basically be the implementation of changing the green squares to blue. But for the most part, it's almost a carbon copy of this, but you'll have to do a couple things differently. And you'll figure out what it is you need to do or change when you start to work with the NetBeans project. But just make sure you understand what's going on here, because that's going to be important for you to do the NetBeans project. Okay, so you'll provide the necessary instance field and code to solve the maze when the Solve Maze button is pressed. You'll be using the JPanel object, so I'll show you that in a second. And so because you're using the JPanel object, you're going to need to know something about JPanel. When you press this button here to solve the maze, you're going to have to change the green squares to blue. Okay, and so you're going to need to know something about JPanel in order to do that. So I say explore the appropriate API documentation, or Google what it is you need to do to change the color of the squares with JPanel. But just let me show you that very briefly. Now, before I actually show you some of the code there, we'll be using JPanel object, and I did want to show you this here. So talk about hierarchies of classes. We are working with the swing components in Java, or the graphical user interface. And I want you to notice here, if I go back, where was this here? So the JPanel is the simplest container class that provides space in which an application can attach any component. It inherits from the JComponents class. So here you see this little dark square, that's a JPanel. And on that JPanel we've attached some buttons here, button 1 and button 2. But this whole darn thing is called a window. Okay, so this window holds the JPanel holds the buttons. Right, and so when you take a look at the hierarchy of classes in the GUI swing components for Java, we have the J component class, which is an abstract class denoted there by that arrow. But then we extend from J component, JPanel, so there's the JPanel. And then we have another abstract class, abstract button, so you have a J button and a J toggle button. J toggle button is an abstract class, and so you have checkbox and J radio button, extend from J toggle button. We have a label that extends from J component. Then we have JText component. Looks like it's an abstract class, and it is, but why would you have an abstract class for just one thing for one subclass? Well, I'm pretty sure this is a mistake this textbook put out, because JText component not only would it hold a JText field, something like you enter in your password or username, it would also have, there's something called a text area. So it's like, if you take a test or a quiz or whatever, or you do something online and you have a big box where you can type in a lot of, you can type in sentences and a whole paragraph. Well, I'm pretty sure that would be JText area. So I think this is kind of wrong, because I think JText area should also be included under JText component. It just wouldn't make sense to have one class JText field. Okay, well, maybe it would or maybe it wouldn't, but I'm pretty sure it's missing JText area. All right, so anyway, again, you're working with a J panel which extends from J component. So that's what I was showing you there. So J panel, it inherits from J component's class, right? So that's what I was showing you. J panel inherits from J component. All right, and so you'll need to know something about that J panel's class. So let me go back to this maze of recursion here. All right, so let's take a look at some of the code here, and you'll have to understand something about the code, and you should be able to understand a lot about this because you know a lot by now. So I'm going to take a look at the recursion maze class. It extends from J panel. It extends from J panel, and so if I go down to the main method here, so I'm going to instantiate a new panel, new recursion maze. And then I'll use the color class, and I'll set my color to white, 255, 255, and then I'll set the background color panel to my color white. So if I go back here, you see, so here's my J panel right there. The background is white. The background is white there. All right, and then I'm going to set the bounds of that J panel, so it's going to be 400 by 400 pixels, high and wide. 400 by 400, but then I'm going to start it at 150 pixels on the window. So let me show you what I mean. So here, all right, so here's my J panel's background is white, but here's my window. Here's my window, and then but here's my J panel, and so it starts at every GUI in the upper left hand corner right there starts at 0, 0. Right? And if you go down, Y increases, and if you go to the right, X increases. So I'm going to start this J panel at 100 pixels for X and 50 pixels for Y. So that's what I'm doing there. So 150, and it's going to be 400 by 400 pixels. So you see that. So, all right, so there. So there's my J panel there. All right, and then I'll call the method setUpWindow, because all I've done is I've created a panel, but I have not created a window in which to place that panel. See, I just have a panel here, but I don't have a window. Until I have a window, nothing will be shown. So, right, so nothing's going to be shown. All right, so I call setUpWindow, and let's take a look at here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create another J panel, button panel, and this panel here will hold the button. A button that I'm going to create. So, and again, I'll position that button panel at 200, 490 XY, maybe 200 pixels by 40 pixels, and then I'll create or instantiate a J button, and then I'll set the bounds of that button to be the same as the bounds of the panel, and then what I'll do is I'll attach the button to the panel. I'll attach the button to the panel. All right, so here, if I go back here, J panel provides space in which an application can attach any other components, and basically that's what I'm doing. I am attaching the button to that J panel, button panel. All right, so if I go back, so if you look here, so you have a J panel here, and then on that J panel you have a button. All right. All right, and then what I'll do, I'll call the method on solve button Okay, so I'm going to set up so that it's interactive, so that when I press the button, it will show solve maze. So if I run this, basically you're not going to be concerned about this. You won't need that. What you'll be doing is you'll be calling a method that will then solve the maze. But I just put that in there, so when I press that there, oops. Oh, okay, so if I press the button, yeah, it's going to say solve the maze. All right, solve the maze. All right, but again, you won't be using that. You'll be calling a method to solve the maze. So anyway, I have all my panels all set up. And then now all I need to do is I need to create my window. So it's going to be 600 by 600 pixels. I'm not using what's considered, I could lay out panels using various layout designs in Java, but I'm saying here by setting set layout to null, I'm saying I will lay out the panels my own. I will do it my own self. I am not going to use one of the default methods that Java provides me to lay out panels. All right, and then I'll set the window visible to true, the resizable to false, so that when I go, so when I run this here, I can't expand it or shrink it. So resizable false. And then here's my close button there, so when I click that, it will close. Alright, and then set location relative to null, so basically that's just setting it so that when it runs, it opens right in the center of the big window here. Right. And then what I'll do to this window, then I'll add this here. Well, this, this again, we're talking about this. What is this? This is the Recursion Maze J panel. So this refers to the object I created panel. So this, right? So this refers to panel. So I add to the window this. So I'm going to add that panel to the window, and then I also add the button panel too. All right. So basically, I've just set up my GUI. I've set it up. What I have not done is I have not actually colored in these green squares. So, yet. I just have a white panel with a white background. It's there, and I have a panel with a button. So that's all I've done right now. Alright, so now I need to set my maze. Well, so let's take a look at this. First of all, I have okay, if I go back up here. Alright, so I have another class called square, and I'm going to create an array of squares that's going to be 10 by 10, so it will hold 100 squares. Alright, so 100 squares. And if I go back here, so each of these here, you think of, you have one, it's 10 by 10. 10 by 10, so 100 squares there. Alright, and so then when I set up my maze here, then what I'm going to do is I'll have a nested for loop. I'll be going row column, and then what I'm going to do, I need to position each one of those green squares at a certain spot, and I need to make it green. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass in some ij values and then some color values, and you'll see how that works then when I instantiate a new square. So I'll say m squares ij equals new square ijc. I will be the row, j will be the column, c will be the color. Alright, so when I go here to my squares, so here's my squares class. So I have some instance variables, x position, y position, shape, color. Okay, each square is going to be 40 by 40 pixels. And then the background color, the default background color will be white. And I guess I probably really didn't even need that. So, but anyway, here's my constructor for square. So n comes x, n comes y, and then x, y, and then shape, color. So if I go back here, so notice here I and j will go from 0 to 9, and the color is 1. All right, so there. So basically, I'm instantiating squares, and I'm placing squares. All right, but what hasn't happened though, yet is so I've created some green squares, right? Okay, so if I go back here, I've created green squares. When I've set it up, I just have green squares will be represented in m squares, but I still have not placed them I still have not placed them on the panel. So how do we put them on the panel? Well, I'll show you. Oops. All right, so go back here. All right, so here, so I set up my maze. Now, so the green squares, I mean, they're there. Well, but they're not on the panel. But here, because I'm working with a JPanel, I override the paint component from JPanel, and this allows me to do some drawing. It gives me access to a graphics context for the JPanel that I can now start to do some drawing. So when all of these, when everything gets set up and everything gets instantiated, then okay, this paint component will get called. Okay, so it will get called after I set up the maze. This will get called. It will give me access to a graphics context that I can draw on. And so here we'll use super paint component G to paint on the graphics content. But remember, I have to call super, because if I don't call super, if I just call paint component, I just get recursion, right? It would be recursive. So I'll be calling this the super class paint component G. All right, and then what I'll do, so as this gets called, then I'll iterate through a double nested loop array. And for each square, I'll call the draw method, passing in the graphics context. So if I look at m squares ij draw g, okay, which will be here. So what it will do, so this method here, it sets the color g, so we'll call this method set color, graphics color g. And because I passed in 1 when I created each square, it will be green. So basically it's like, imagine you're painting on a canvas and you want to choose a green paint. So now I have to choose the green paint before I start to do some drawing. So that's the first thing you have to do. You have to what color are you going to use when you start doing some drawing. And then here, and this is where I use my XY positions, right? So basically I just take the X and Y position and I multiply it by the side length 40. And so that's going to give me a square that's 40 by 40. Position exactly where I want them to be. So this will be 0, 0. So this will be 0, 0. Down here will be like 40, 40. So this would be 40, 80. And down here will be 40, 80. So that's what I'm doing here. So integer x equals x position times side length, integer y equals that's weird. Why did I go x equals I see something here. I don't think that really will matter. That's weird. Let me just do this again. It did change it though, didn't it? Well, it won't really matter though for what we're doing. So your square would look like that. Yeah, so. But it really won't matter. I just noticed that, okay? Yeah, I just changed the square, but it doesn't change anything that you guys are going to do. Yeah, and then so I set the x and y, and then now I'll go x plus side length, which is 40, and y plus side length, which is 40. So basically, it's just going to create those squares. It's going to draw those squares on JPanel. Okay, so let's see here. So recursion maze. So again, this paint component gets called when everything gets set up. Notice it says to paint the background called when JPanel is created, resized, or on demand. Your key is when you actually go to press this solve maze button, then you'll want to update your paint. You want to update your graphics context. Okay, so you're going to have to figure out then how do you call this method again, paint component. How do you call that again when you press that button? because you're going to have to update. You're going to have to. Well, look at the API for JPanel, and you'll figure that out. All right, or Google it. It is very easy to do, but I want you guys to figure that out. All right, so there it draws the squares. So it draws the squares. Now again, all you're going to do is you're going to create a method, and just look at the AP class, that textbook I just showed you, or that Barron's AP, and basically is that method there. But you'll have to incorporate this in this application here. So some things will be a little different. Yeah, so basically you'll have a method that you'll call, and you'll incorporate what was from Barron's, but then you'll have to change a couple things. And a hint is you will have to add an instance variable. Now if I look at so this sets the color, and then now this updates the color, so you can actually update the color, and this actually gets the color. Alright, so I've had some getters and setters, so you can change the color shape here, and you can get the color shape. So that would be important. Okay, so again, when we draw, we set the color first. We have to say what color we want to use, and then we'll get the particular X and Y position, and then we'll fill in the rectangle. We'll create rectangles filled in. So, and then G set color. So again, I'm calling set color on the graphics context G. This set color here is different than this set color. This set color is something I have defined. The graphics context though, G, graphics G, has a method called set color, and again, basically it's like you're picking up a paintbrush and you're going to dip it in paint. And what color do you want? What color do you want? All right, so there. So yeah, so look over this. This is very easy. Once you understand, it's probably going to take you no more than 10 or 15 minutes to actually. So if I show you here, well, I won't show you. So it's only going to take you no more than 10 or 15 minutes once you understand everything to implement the method. You do have to do a couple of other things, but it's pretty easy. So when you press the submit button, it's just going to change all that to blue. Yeah, so but that was interesting. All right, so if I run this, it does change the color, the shape of the maze, but it's not going to change anything else. Alright, so there you guys go. So that is it. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to tell you. No, you can kind of look through everything and figure out if there's something I missed. At least by now you should be able to. Okay, let me just see. Yeah, by now you should be able to if I've missed everything, but I don't think I did. Alright, so there you go.